After creating the virtual machine on VirtualBox, you need to do some additional configurations. Before going ahead and install the operating system, you need to do the following things. Create the virtual network to allow your VM to connect to the internet and communicate with other VMs you will add it later on. Set the number of virtual CPU your VM will use. Allow your VM to exchange files with your host machine. There are other parameters you can set up, but these are the most important. First, you need to create the virtual network. For that, open the File menu and click on Preferences. Click on Network in the left panel. Then click on this tiny green button to add your network. Immediately, VirtualBox creates the virtual network with a default name and also a default IP address. You can leave it as it is, it will work, or you can change the default settings to fit your needs, especially for the IP address you want to use on your VMs. I will change the network name to My Network Lab. For the IP address, it will be 10.10.10.0/24. The /24 represents the subnet mask. Instead of typing 255.255.255.0, we tell VirtualBox that 24 bits out of 32 are set to 1. Leave the DHCP checkbox enabled to allow VirtualBox to assign IP addresses dynamically to the VMs. Click OK to validate. Notice that the creation of the virtual network is usually done once. You don't have to create a virtual network every time you create a new VM, unless you want to use another IP class or another subnet. Next, select your VM and click on the Settings shortcut to open the Settings window. First, go to the Advanced tab and enable the sharing clipboard by selecting Bidirectional. Do the same thing with the drag and drop option to be able to drag and drop files and folders between the host and the VM in both ways. Next, click on System. You can see on the Motherboard tab the memory size we have defined in the previous step. Here we have the boot order. You can change if needed. Now click on the Processor tab to define the processor settings. VirtualBox assigned one virtual CPU to my VM. You can add more CPUs to your VM based on the resources available on your host machine. In this machine, I have 4 CPUs. I am going to add a second CPU to my VM. You can stay with one CPU if you have only 2 CPUs on your host machine. The execution cap feature allows you to specify how much time the host CPU can spend executing the VM code. The default value is 100%, meaning there is no limitation. This feature can be useful on hosts with a small number of CPUs. If you don't want your host to slow down when the VM hogs the CPU, you can lower this value to 80 or 70%. Okay? I will leave this value at 100%. Next, we are going to configure the VM network. In the Attached to drop-down menu, select NAT network and select the virtual network you have created in the previous step. You can also create a shared folder on your host machine to share files between your host and your VM. Click on the Add button and enter the folder path and the folder name. You can make this share read-only so that the VM can't change the content of the shared folder. I will not set this feature for now. as I have enabled the copy and paste and the drag and drop features previously. That's it. We are done with the VM configuration.